We good to start?
We are now, and welcome to another amazing wisdom circle. My name's Sophia from Sacred You, and with us today on this incredible wisdom circle, Ancient Wisdom Rising, Moon Medicine from Modern Hearts, is the beautiful Rolly Alaire, otherwise known as Gigaro Migwanque from wherever you are, Rolly. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to Sacred You and sharing this with the world. I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about your beautiful self and all about ancient wisdom before we introduce these incredible women who have joined us.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Sophia. So Gigaro Migunque, as Sophia has shared, is my spirit name, which means talking feather woman. And it is and coming back and talking about the ancient wisdom rising is one of the topics that I think is so important to be able to share because there has been so many shifts, so many changes, so many things that have happened in the world that people have shifted and are connected to things that used to work in the past that were forbidden or that have been shunned on. And we're just seeing so much of all these things, these beautiful things coming back together. And just being able to remember what some of these this ancient wisdom that lives within us allows us to be able to bring forward all the conversations and all the topics and all the things that allow us to be who we are and expand beyond that. So I'm super excited to be here to share with these beautiful women from around the world. And I'll go around in and have everyone introduce themselves. So Denise, you are first on my circle. So if you would like to share who you are, where you are from, and a little bit about what has drawn you to ancient wisdom.
Okay, thank you. Denise, of course, and I'm from the border of New South Wales and Victoria in Australia. And it's winter here right now, so yous are all dressed nice and light, dressed warm. For me, what I do is I help people find themselves. I help people see who they are, help people give them all the tools to know their spiritual side, their inner self, it draws me to Inside Out, because the children's movie, they give us lots of juicy, great metaphors and great way of living. But yeah, I help people heal, self-heal, and which uncovers who they are and how they can do it themselves. And what draws me to this is that every moon is a season, and every season we have the opportunity to see ourselves even more in that season. And, I'm very much about, it's not a week we have to think about or a month, it's each day and each moment that we have the opportunity for new moments, new
Beautiful.
beings, new lives, new everything. We're not based on a week or the end of the day or the end of the month or the end of the year. It's very much changing every moment because everything around us changes in every moment. So therefore, being here with these beautiful ladies, it's about in this moment we get to change ourselves and how others see and change themselves. So, and the moon and everything else, the cycles, shows us the season that we should see within ourselves.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Denise. Lisa, you are next on my list. Do you want to share who you are and where you're from?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lisa Doucette, and I'm from Nova Scotia. Um, I am an intuitive. I do Reiki healing and teaching. I dabble a little bit in herbology. I'm a human design analyst, and I'm also a death doula. Um, and the reason that I'm particularly interested in this topic is because intuitively I feel such a draw to the ancient ways of healing the planet and healing ourselves and and following those cycles and seasons. And I feel like, and I've said this in other circles before, that I feel like we've gotten too far away from our cyc our cycles and our and how we should be living in cycles. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation and hearing the viewpoints of everybody else on the call, but I think we'll have a lot of synergy. So thank you for
Beautiful.
hosting.
Thanks so much, Lisa. And Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm from Florida in the United States. I am a storyteller. I also practice Reiki healing and am tarot reading. I read energy in general, but tarot has become like a new form of like focused way of doing that for me. And so it's kind of I've been doing it for a while, but like I don't know, every now and then I come across something that I'm like, I'm gonna be here for a moment. And so tarot has kind of been that thing for like the past year and a half. And for me, I think what I'm really drawn to is like I got to where I am with my journey because of reconnecting with the cultures and practices in my own lineages. And that has brought me a lot of healing and purpose and like shifted my life. And so I think that like, for me, I've found that ancient wisdom and those practices like life-changing for me. And so it's like, I think it's also a matter of like, how do we continue bringing this to other people? And I think that starts with just being able to have conversations about it. Like with all of us talking here, we're putting energy into it that is also putting it out into the world.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Lisa, Laura. And Ashley?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Peace and love. I am Ashley Nicole. I am the founder of BeRelief.com. By career or by my professional experience, I am a degreed health scientist. I'm also certified in human biology, plant biology, and herbalism. I am also a life, business, and health coach where I actually help business owners or entrepreneur kind of balance their life out a little bit while also making sure we are considerate and compassionate towards our health and keeping that in the forefront. I guess this topic has really been a staple in my life for a very long time. I think my awareness is just knowing that for thousands of years, our ancestors looked to the moon, not just as something beautiful in the night sky, of course, but as a rhythm keeper in a way. They planted crops by it, they harvested herbs by it, even observed some tides, and even paid attention to how it seemed to influence, our human behavior. So somewhere along the way, modern society taught us to disconnect. I think someone's mentioned that earlier. Taught us to disconnect from those rhythms. So today, I just really want to explore what it means to reconnect, not by abandoning the science, but by allowing ancient wisdom and modern understanding to have a conversation. So, as both a health scientist and an herbalist, I've learned something fascinating that the deeper I study biology, physiology, and even the human body, the more I realize that our ancestors were observing patterns long before they had laboratories, per se, to explain them. So science gives us mechanisms and ancient wisdom gives us observation, in my opinion. So together they invite us to become more intentional about how we care for ourselves. And that's what I plan to really talk about, but that's what some awarenesses I received about ancient wisdom and the moon modern medicine as well.
Beautiful. So thanks so much. So I am so excited that we are here. And so I don't always make notes for myself, and I put notes in the chat because I'm like, hey, I want to come back to those points from each one of your introductions. And so one of the things that for anybody who's listening is that as we're talking and we're communicating and having these conversations, is that any one of the ladies that are here to join us are going to be able to just kind of put their hand up so that we can just kind of like popcorn the conversation and allow things to be able to just really flow, because I think that that is where we get the biggest chunks of nuggets in the things that we're talking about, rather than just going around and having everybody answer specific questions. But some of the points from the introductions that everybody has shared is Denise was talking about the seasons in the moment. And I think that that is so important for us to be able to come back and touch on, because that season in the moment is that when we're talking about, because we go back to what Ashley was saying about having like the ancestors knew, like our ancestors knew, like all these people that come before us knew that the like all these cycles and all these different things had stories to tell, and all the different things that have happened. And but all of these cycles happen and continue to happen in every minute. So like it breaks down, like we move through all of this, the 12 zodiac signs in a minute. Like obviously that is way too much for us to be like jumping in and connecting on that exact minute, on that exact time, on that exact day. There's like way too much, but all these things cycle within the time frame. And it's just so important that we get to live in the minute, in the moment, and in this season and what it is that's happening, while still being able to go back and look at, okay, so past, what has the past told me? What is it that has been happening? So not so that we live in the past, but so that we can figure out how to move forward and bring things through. And then Lisa was talking about death doula, and one of the things that like my light bulb went on about, like, yes, everything comes in those cycles and in those moments and within that wisdom. And people that are dying, and Lisa will be able to jump in and share a little bit more at some point if this fits, but people that are dying know when it is that's happening. Like they know in that precise moment that they're going to die. They don't know ahead of time, like we can't predict when that's going to happen, but just as it's happening, if you've been there holding someone's hand who is going to pass, they know exactly when that moment's going to be, and their body tells you when that's going to be, if you've been able to be fortunate to be in the room. And it's again that cycle of bringing all that knowledge and all that wisdom, and everybody or everything that comes forward to them in that moment is there to support them in that journey. And then Laura was talking about tarot cycles, or tarot, and that she's in a cycle right now of being in that, so that she's lived these different cycles of like kind of learning and being in that. And I really want to be able to touch a little bit more about how that the tarots help with being able to connect with the cycles, and how to be able to bring that forward. And then Ashley, that rhythm keeper, I was just like, oh my God, mind blown. I love this word. I love this is just absolutely amazing. I was like, hey, I'm writing in the middle of publishing my book. It's going to be out for publishing by the end of this week. And so there's lots of like keepers and wisdom and rhythm and like all these words that have come forward, and you're like rhythm keeper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to write that one down, because like that is just so important for us to be able to understand what our own rhythms are, because we are the keeper of our own rhythm. We already know, even when we don't know. And so there's all these rhythms and all these different things of things that are happening. And so yeah, so I just wanted to like really tap into those three things, or those four things from the introductions, of how powerful this room and this conversation, and as Lisa said, is like that connection within this conversation is going to be hugely powerful. And it always is, but it's always surprises me when we bring a room full of women together and everything just seems to be cohesive, and everything just seems to blend so well. And so on those 4 points of things that I've just pointed out, does anybody want to add to that? So Denise, you're muted, Denise.
Yeah, you talking through all of that. It's like, the rhythm, the cycles of death, bringing tarot cards into being able to share with others and see more for ourselves. They're definitely patterns, aren't they? And it drew me to the patterns of our life, what patterns we're actually living in, what patterns do we hold on to, what patterns do we let go for ourselves to evolve and find that that rhythm that we ourselves are to be in, because we have all our ancestors, we have all the past, we have all of that who have shown us ways, not particularly right ways, and there are right ways and there are wrong ways, but the ways, and we've decided to carry on some of those patterns until we actually get to a place that we realize that those patterns aren't ours, or those rhythms aren't ours. I'd keep it at patterns, because when we stop and go, okay, well, they're not mine, then I find my rhythm. Then we start looking at our own rhythm and what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep, what lights us up from our past or our ancestry, or those thousands of years that have gone before us. And I just wanted to highlight the patterns is where we sit in our vibrations. So it determines whether we're at a higher vibration or a lower vibration. And we skitter through all of them. We don't stay at one high vibration because now I know. It means that I'm up here today, but I might be down here today. And that comes back to the patterns that we've owned and we're still carrying and we haven't let go of, to see the higher vibrations. Yeah, so that really drew me to that.
I love that, Denise. Anyone else?
I was
So,
trying to find the hand.
Laura?
I was trying to find the hand thing. I'll
Even just
sit there a
waving,
moment.
just so that I just
I'm
don't want
gonna
to
wait.
lose somebody in conversation.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I really like, Denise, what you were talking about there, especially with patterns. And I feel that especially in the past several months and even year, because I have come back to Florida and helped my parents move from our childhood home and get settled in a new home. And so much of this, there's been an examining of what is mine and what isn't. And what I've kind of ways in which I've been living that no longer serve me. And so that whole idea of patterns, and even you talking about the fact that you might you might go into one level of frequency and then the next day you kind of find yourself at back in another one. And I think I just came across something right before we hopped on that was talking about when sometimes we step back into things, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's there to kind of show us where we are, to show us what we're still learning, what patterns are still there, but also to show us how far, what we've healed and what we've moved on from. And so that resonates with me just because of a lot of the healing and the work that I've done here, is saying where am I still showing up in old ways that no longer serve me or others? And, how do I step into new, more authentic ways for me that help shift those patterns? And understanding that when I heal within me, it shifts things outside of me too.
I love that. Thanks so much, Laura. And it's just super, super powerful when we get to re-examine that and figure out and like you said, going through your childhood home and figuring out the different things. And it's yeah, that's mine, that's not mine, that's mine, that's not mine. And being able to see how these things have actually fit. So some of them were physical things, but then there was also that emotional attachment or memory to all the things that have actually happened. And so yeah, so that's just super, super powerful. And as I've been kind of fine tuning my book, that was one of the things that I discovered in the one chapter as I was going through. I was hey, just a minute, I want to explore that a little bit further. I want to explore that a little bit further. And it took me all the way back to birth instead of just in the moment that I was actually talking about. And so it's just really been enlightening to be able to go back into that childhood and figuring out the different things and seeing the seasons and the patterns and the cycles that have actually happened from the time that I was born and where things fit from that the wisdom of the stars, because that information is there already. It doesn't predict, it doesn't tell us exactly what's going to happen. We still have free will, we have all these different things, but they're all things and all tools that we can actually use to help support us in making the decision, helping support us in what it is that's happening, and really allows us to be able to have that information. So there are many of us that are Reiki practitioners. And so, so with even that is just knowing that we have the ability to like bring in that energy, calling in that energy and allowing that energy to bring, to work for the person that we're working with, whether it's ourselves or someone else, and allowing things to be able to just kind of have, the natural opportunities for things to just heal where they need to be healed. Because even though like it's like, oh, somebody's got a back pain, well, when you do a Reiki session, for anybody who's experienced one or done one, it's like, yeah, that's not what we end up working on. We end up working on the big toe, because the big toe is significant to something or other. And so it's just really interesting how it is intuitive, and it knows, and it has every opportunity to help guide you when you allow them to guide you. Same as the tarot cards, same as the wisdom of the body that Denise often talks about. And like all that information is there. It's just learning how to be able to tap into it and knowing that it's there and what to do with it. Anyone else want to add to any of these points in the conversation? Ashley?
Yeah, I was just, oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Oh,
Ashley.
that's okay, Nicole. Go ahead. You started talking. Go ahead. Okay, so now you're both quiet. So Ashley, go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that, Lisa. I was looking forward to hearing what you have to say. But yes, I feel like, ladies, you all are speaking my language. I definitely agree with all the points made. I believe that healing leaves patterns, so nature has been showing us the way really all along. Like, one of the most fascinating things I've learned as a health scientist is what Denise mentioned, that life is built on patterns, right? Like, our heartbeat follows a pattern, right? Our breathing follows a pattern, whether it's intentional or not. Our sleep follows a pattern. The seasons follow a pattern. Even the cells in our bodies grow and they repair and renew in patterns. So when those patterns become disrupted, we often may experience imbalance, right? So as an herbalist, I've come to appreciate that our ancestors recognized those patterns long before they had the scientific language that we have now, right, to even describe them. They noticed that certain plants, thrived in certain seasons, that certain periods of rest followed certain periods of work, and that healing often required patience, rather than force. Now, I believe there's a lesson in that. Somewhere along the way, many of us started believing that healing should be instant, right? We want a quick fix for problems that developed over months or even years, right? But nature doesn't usually work that way, right? So think about a tree. Like, when a branch breaks, the tree doesn't heal overnight, right? It doesn't panic either, because it isn't fully restored by morning. Instead, it protects that wounded area. If you ever really notice a tree, I live around a lot of trees, and so I've been studying that. It actually redirects the energy and slowly begins the process of repair. So the scar may remain, maybe a little wound right there, but the tree continues to actually grow. And so sometimes I ask the question, like, why do we expect more from ourselves than we expect from nature? Because we are a part of that. Sometimes I know we become frustrated even because we're not back to normal, whatever that is. But what if healing isn't about going back, like how you're mentioning earlier? What if it's about growing forward? Every season has a purpose, right? Every season has a purpose. There are seasons to plant, seasons to water, even seasons to prune. I mean, seasons to harvest. And there are seasons when the ground appears quiet, but deep beneath the surface, life is preparing for what's next. And I think that is the same truth for us. And that's what makes it so exciting, because there are seasons where we're learning. And learning sometimes, of course, doesn't have to be all rainbows. It is tough sometimes, but it's going to be some seasons too when we're grieving, when we're rebuilding, when we're flourishing. And none of them are wasted. So as both a health scientist and an herbalist, I've just learned that the body is constantly working towards or forward in balance or synergy, if you don't like the word balance. It's repairing tissues, regulating hormones. I mean, I can keep going on about adapting to stress and responding to choices that we make every day. And so we support that process not only through medicine or herbs, but also through nourishing food and restorative sleep, movement, meaningful relationships, and even moments of stillness. So, I just wanted to put that out there because I feel like healing is less about finding the perfect remedy and more about creating healthy patterns that you repeat with love. Every nourishing meal, even every boundary that you honor, every walk in nature, every moment of rest, every kind word that you speak to yourself. I know a lot of times we have that inside voice that may not be as compassionate and caring. So we need to just be aware of those patterns. And over time, those small intentional choices kind of weave together into a life that reflects that health, peace, and wholeness that I think that we're all seeking.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lisa?
Thanks. I love that. You are speaking my language too, Ashley, with the nature and the plants and all of that. I love everything that you just said. I've spent years healing different aspects of myself, and I know that we've all been on that journey, but I've recently been able to come back home. Like I lost my dad in December, and I can talk a little bit more about that, but I've moved back to my home place. I was away for 35 years and now I'm back at home, and it's I'm looking at things from a very different lens now, like things that, would trigger me when I was younger, or things that I would be interested in this particular place and in this particular culture that no longer holds that same sense of wonder for me. And I think it's because of the healing journey that I'm on. So, um, what's the point I'm trying to make here? The the patterns, I think that, yeah, this is what I'm getting there. The patterns that we've watched, that I've watched my entire life with different people. I come from a very small coal mining community, so there's a lot of trauma in my community, and of a whole lot of unhealed people and things that I grew up thinking were normal, or you just accepted things that way, or um I now realize through my healed lens that that doesn't have to be the case. I don't have to make myself small or insignificant to keep the peace, or, so it really is about those patterns in life, and healing helps us to recognize the patterns that didn't serve us and help to heal ourselves and hopefully others through being a good example or being an example of the healing process. But the other thing that really kind of struck me is the patterns of the earth too. Like if we're talking about um like the patterns of the moon and the patterns of the earth, like we know that after a forest fire, we're going to see fireweed be the first thing to pop up, and it has those beautiful purple flowers on it. And it's kind of like that healing thing. So it also reminds me too of the infinity sign. Like we're going to be on those highs and lows through life for our entire life. And when we're on the low, we have to remember we have to think about the fireweed and the lessons that we've been through, because we know we're going to cycle up again. And so it's really important that we take all of those lessons that we learned through life, and especially when we go back and see through that different lens, that there's always something new to learn there, and that's just going to bunt us forward in life, if that makes sense.
That's so beautiful, Lisa. And that really does takes me back to a lesson that I had learned years ago. I guess it wasn't that long ago. maybe 5, 6 years, but it feels like a long time sometimes. But like one of the things that that this person had taught was that he was very much into forestry. He was into like the herbalism and connection, and he had brought us for to show us like some tree tapping and tasting some of the sap at the different stages of the tree tapping, and which trees to tap and that kind of thing, in terms of medicines, of like all that ancient knowledge that came forward. I think it was Ashley that was mentioning about like the like all the things that come from what we were able to use and what we weren't able to use and that kind of thing. And what Lisa was just saying about like the fireweed, and I've never heard about fireweed, but it makes perfect sense, because one of the things that he talked about was that a tree, so like we have a pine tree that's here, when that tree dies, under the tree is already a specific type of tree that is ready to grow again to replace that tree. It's not going to be another pine tree unless it happens to be that it gets seeded by that, but under that tree that is, and when it's ready to go, it will be a tree that's going to come up, because this tree replaces this tree, and then when that tree dies, another tree replaces it, but it's a specific family of trees that actually grows. And I was just so super fascinated by that. And so hearing you talk about the fireweed, it's like, oh, that like makes so much sense, because of that ancient knowledge that came from this person who had been studying it and knew all the different things. And like Ashley was talking about, like having the modern, right? So like it's about making sure that we are connecting the ancient stuff with the modern stuff, because we need both. It's not like, in the whole purpose of us going through the scientific stages and learning about all the different things and doing all the lab research and all those things that they needed, is all for us to be able to get into that next step. But it's not about wiping one over the other. It's not about one being right over the other. And so same as like when we talk about healing our bodies through with medication or not healing with medication, it depends on what it is that's going on. And sometimes we need the scientific way of healing, and we need the non-scientific way of healing. And there's a bumblebee that just came up into my face. But it's just that importance of being able to recognize what it is that's happening, in terms of we take what we need and we leave the rest. And so it doesn't mean that we have to go all one way or all the other way. It just means that we need to try and figure out how to bring things so that they actually work cohesively, and so that that we can make better choices. And the better choices are not a right and wrong decision. It's a better choice for what is right and wrong in this moment for me. So what is right for me right now could be what's wrong for me in 10 years from now. And so vice versa, right? So it all depends on what it is that's happened, and how it is that we want to be able to move through that. Denise?
Yeah, that's perfect. You know, it's like, what are we attaching ourselves to? What are the attachments? Like, is my home my attachment? Are my children my attachment? Are my clothes my attachment? Or a specific meaning and attachment, you know, that I've decided to attach myself to. And it's like, life isn't about, you know, our beingness isn't about attaching to anything. It's allowing everything to come through, because everything that comes through is here for us to see. And it's about showing us what, you know, attachments. When we have attachments, we lose them. If we lose them, we become very down. So we're not balanced in who we are. Like some things, like we were talking about fire before, fire comes through and takes everything, but yet it regrows again. So it shows us that we can regrow in everything, no matter what we lose. So it's about how strong is our attachment to things, because attachment makes us, well, it actually stops and hinders us from moving forward. So it's
And
like, oh, sorry, and it's being open to you know, be well, allow ourselves not to be attached, because then we can love more. We can love the things that we have more and be okay when it goes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry,
Beautiful. Lisa,
Lisa,
what
go
were you going
for
to
it.
add to that? You had something that you wanted to add.
yeah, I was just going to say, um, respond to what Denise was saying about how when we need the healing when something goes away, like the fire takes it away, but then it heals. But if you look at this is a really good example of taking that scientific and the old ways, because I know here in Canada with the forestry industry, when they clear cut, they just plant one kind of tree and the forest didn't thrive because that's not the old way. There has to be different types of trees in the area because one tree gives something to another tree, and then there has to be certain kind of mushrooms and certain kind of other plants so that they give the medicine to each other. And I think we have a lot that we can observe from nature, but that's where I think we have to be observant of the old ways and then bring the science in if we're thinking about how we heal, right? So and I think as women, we're naturally intuitive beings, and that kind of connects us to the moon, like even our hormones cycle with the moon cycle. And so I think it's really important as women to tune back into our intuitions, and before we embark on any kind of healing, um, that we really tune in and listen to our bodies and what we need in that moment. Because I think there's so much wisdom in our bodies. So,
It really is. And it's so important for us to be able to listen to what it is that we have that tells us. And so so I know that that for me is that if I get a like, yeah, don't do this feeling, even when I don't understand or don't know what it is, like I have listened to that for a long time and but did not necessarily understand it or know what it is. And so sometimes there are trigger warnings to like stay away from certain people or to not go and do a certain thing or things like that. But like I know that way back before I actually connected to my spirituality, I had we were supposed to go on a family trip, and I'm like, "Okay, we're not leaving just yet. Like I don't know why, but we're just not supposed to leave right now. And so let's just do this first, and then we'll come back to it." And everybody's looking at me like I've got like three heads because it's like, okay, mom, what are you doing? So my kids are like, yeah, but we need to go. And my husband's like, yeah, well, I want to get on the road. And turned out that several hours later, because I don't can't remember if it was like we weren't going until the next day or what it is that happened, but several hours later we had heard that the that our swim coach had actually been killed on the highway. And if we would have actually looked at timing in terms of like we were supposed to leave at this time, we would have been smack dab in the middle of that. So either would have been could have been us, or it could have been that we were coming in or just passing it. And so I didn't know why. I had absolutely no idea why. And then later on is when and that's where that looking back, right? So like not dwelling on the past, but looking back of like, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, that's what it is that game. And sometimes that is where our wisdom comes from, is just being able to trust what it is that's happening in this moment, but um but it impacts what it is that's happening later. And then we can come back and look at it and say, oh, that's why that happened. Because life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. And it's so important. And we get to make a decision, we get to make a choice. We can be on a fork of the road and make a decision as to which one is going to happen. But there's still that wisdom that knows the path that we're supposed to be on. There's still that wisdom that knows what it is that we're supposed to be happening to. And so like that is just so important for us to be able to look at as well. Ashley, you unmuted. What did you want to share?
Um, I would share that I definitely agree with what you are saying in regards to intuition. I think well, my perspective on intuition is that it is connected to the source or to the all who has a bigger picture, a bird's eye point of view of your life, whether it's past, present, or future. And sometimes we have to just be able to trust that a little more and to respect and honor that because it does give us warnings. Sometimes I like to say our higher self on one side and the lower self on the other on your shoulder, not meant for you to choose one or the other, but to consider them both. And hopefully you can make a great decision from that. But also your point about ancient wisdom versus science in a way, I feel like sometimes people think that they have to choose between science and traditional wisdom. But I don't really believe that. I believe science gives us incredible tools to understand how the body works, while traditional practices or ancient wisdom often reminds us to pay attention to how we live. And I think that is how we can bridge the gap in between ancient wisdom and science. I don't think ancient wisdom is opposed to science in a way. But another point I just wanted to say really quickly is, nature doesn't really hurry, right? Like a seed doesn't criticize itself because it isn't a tree yet. It honors each season. And I think that's really important. Roots first, then growth, then fruit. And people often want the fruit, which I understand is delicious. But they want to do that without respecting the season that they're currently in. And so I just feel like each season should be honored, whether it's a balanced one or imbalanced one. I really don't believe in between right or wrong, just what you need in this moment, in this time. So I just wanted to piggyback off of what you said, but I definitely agree with you in regards to that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Ashley. Laura?
Yeah, I was just gonna, because we've been talking about like intuition and like listening to the body. And I think also talking about cycles, like I intuitively knew that my parents needed to move from our childhood home. Like I intuitively could feel that like there was a death there and that the timing was there. And you were also talking about how people know, you know, right in that moment of them dying. And I think like that is true for the various cycles of life and death in our lives. And it's like that's happened multiple times where it's like I've been able to feel in my body that like something was dying and like it was time to move on from it before any signs of it really started showing up in the world. And it was kind of funny because I had to come back and I was like, all right, I have to convince my parents to do this with me not convincing my parents to do this. But it goes beyond that. I mean, I think in a lot of ways we're seeing a lot there's like an old world dying and we're feeling that and grieving that and processing that, but also moving into new ways and new life that is intricately tied to ancient wisdom and understanding. And so, Ashley said this multiple times, we don't have to separate the modern science from the ancient wisdom. And I think that is a part of our building and our creation is bringing those things together. But I just think that part of that ancient wisdom is our intuitive knowledge. It is that ability to feel within ourselves, to be able to know it's time to move on from this thing, or it's time to, let go in whatever way that we can.
And I love that. And so it is just so important for us to be able to discern what is right and what is wrong. And again, using that right and wrong, but that is that language that people who may be listening understand or relate to, because it really is in that season, in that moment, what is it that's happening, as to what it is that's going on, and shifting the way that we see things, and shifting the way um that we want to be able to, in a way that works for us. And it's like, how does that work for us? How does that make sense for us? And even when it doesn't make sense to you, in this moment, it's being able to like really, tuning in or tapping into like how do we make this work? This is the way with this. These are the cards that I've been dealt at this moment in this time. So how am I able to make that work? And so then with this next point, I want to kind of tap into to Laura specifically at this point, and then anyone else can jump in if this is something that they connect, is the tarot. And how do we make that like, how do we bring that into our rhythm? How do we bring that into our cycles? How do we have it help us understand that next step, or that next way of doing things? Because the messages come up cryptic, right? So like they're not a straight like, yes, do this and do it exactly this way, right? They just kind of give us this soft understanding of what's to come, what's happened and what's to come. And helps guide us. But how do we do that with a way um of not trying to understand the literal sense, because it's not literal? Laura?
I feel like every now and then you get something that's like, I feel like it's on the nose, and I'm like, what? I'm like, watch yourself, tarot, watch yourself, cards. But no, you're right. And I was thinking about that too, because when you wrote like do tarot in the chat and you were talking about it, I was like, there's actually so many cycles within tarot. Like there's so many endings and beginnings over and over and over again. And you were talking about like even within the cycles of like the zodiac, you go what would you say, like 12 in a minute or something? I can't remember what you specifically said, but I was thinking about that about tarot because like I even drew a card for somebody today that was like the Page of Wands, and what came up was like new beginnings. And the aces also represent new beginnings, and the fool represents new beginnings. Like there's so many cards that like represent new beginnings. And I also think it's fascinating. And there's a lot of cards that represent death and represent endings. And it's interesting too, paying attention is like, when is that coming up in a way that is about the mind and about beliefs? When is that coming up in a way with passions? When is it coming up in a way about money in the home? Like there's so many kind of intricate ways in which we experience rebirth and life and death and the different kind of parts of those cycles. Um, there was something else that I was thinking about too, and of course it just slipped my mind. I was like there and I was going, and then it's like now it's gone. Um, oh, this is what it is. It's back. I've also noticed that like um a lot of times the same card or the same message of a card will come up repeatedly, like repeatedly. I've been getting it. I've been told multiple times, and by myself, by my own readings and others, that like I've got anxiety and worry that's hanging on too much that I need to let go of. And so I think that like it is subtle, but yet it also speaks volumes. Like that's what I think I love about the cards, is that like it is, you're reading the messages that come up, and but when you get the same message over and over again, you're like, oh, okay, it's time for me to like actually start paying attention to this. It's time for me to actually like, if I'm holding on too much to the past or to anxiety and grief and all of these things, it forces me to then start asking the questions of like, how do I change that? And tarot also leans into that. Like I'm always a fan of like, if you get cards that you're not a fan of, I'm like, okay, how do we change it? Or how do we get through it? And so it's like you flip a new card. And so I just think that there's so many little intricacies of it that again speak to the various cycles and speak to both the masculine and the feminine, and how we navigate those things, and how it can go. Like you need the harmony of it. And so I'm could probably go on, but I'm going to pass it on to anybody else that wants to jump in.
Denise?
Yeah, I love that, Laura. Yeah, I use cards as well, and I use them sometimes because I'm an intuitive reader. So I just ask if the cards are needed. Sometimes they're not, sometimes they are. But the cards, I think, are so good, but I think they're there for the other person, because people sometimes like to see that physical sign, because that's what they feel at that time. Because that's because I was really, when I decided to do it that way, okay, do we need cards or don't we? And the answer will go, well, no, we don't. It's because that person's in a space and a frequency that can, is trusting enough to actually take that on and really hear what you're having to say that's coming through for them. And others would have the cards because they're not quite there yet. They're just that little bit on the line where, okay, I need a physical representation. But they are so powerful. And like you said, Laura, cards, when I do readings for a whole day, there's one card that comes out for everybody every single time. And it just blows my mind. And then I do a reading for myself at the end, and that same card comes out every time as well. So, so that's the theme. that we're all in at that stage. So yeah, I just think they're helpful, and I love to also get my clients and the people I read cards for to actually have a look at what's come up and them to tell me what they see within that card, because they have the ability to do it as well. Because we've got to remember that my journey is my journey. It's not going to be the same as everybody else. So I might see it a bit differently than what, I'm also taking something different out of that as well to what you're saying to me. So it's beautiful to let them teach them as they go, show them the way, because what you want is for your clients to come to you, but then know the way and actually have the tools and become that herbalist, become that higher vibration, to become all those things that are ancient, because we have all of that within us from day dot. We've had it, we've just forgotten it because no one showed it to us and never brought that remembrance back. And really that's what we're doing, isn't it? Remembering. We're just on a
And
journey of remembering.
And I really like that, because that's one of the things that, like, when I started working on using my cards from an intuitive perspective, it was that because I'm type A and I wanted to read the book and like follow everything that was in the book. And so when I started learning to be able to like just trust in the intuition, what does the card tell me? And so there was one particular card, I was doing practice readings with people inside my Facebook group, and I'm like, okay, whoever needs a card. And so one of so my best friend's daughter had popped up and said, like, I'd like a card. And so I'm like, okay, like this is good. But I had her on the list of cards, and she got the exact same card as someone else. And so then I was like, I read the first card for the person and said, like, this card means this, and this is what's coming up for you, and whatever it was that happened. But her card came up as being pregnant. I knew that she was pregnant. And so then that's where I started to self-doubt, but I knew that she was pregnant. But it was like, this pregnancy is going to be different, because she had a baby when she was 16. And that was the exact words that I used during my video, is like, of course it's going to be different. Like, you were a teen when you had your last one. So I'm not sure why I'm getting this message that it's going to be different, but it's going to be different. And it wasn't the best message. And I actually stopped reading cards for people for a long time after that, because it frightened me. It made me really feel uncomfortable, because she also is with so not only is she my best friend's daughter, but she also married my nephew. And so her baby was also my like my great nephew. And but when he was born, he was only alive he was kept alive for 8 days. And so of course it was going to be different, because like now it was, but I didn't know that then. And that's where it frightened me. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, I don't want to not understand. And it's like, then I had to go back into that realization of, I'm not supposed to understand it all. I just need to live it all. And I just need to live in this moment and be in this time, and not try to fixate so much. So then I started reading again and using the cards. But that was like super frightening for me, of like, I am using my intuition, because if I would have read from the book, then both people would have got the exact same message. But that wasn't what it was. And that's not what that message was supposed to be. And so yeah, so it's just really important. Ashley, you were going to say something, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, just really quickly. I know we're all talking about our experience with tarot. I guess mine's a little different perspective, only because I incorporate that into my daily life versus, doing tarot readings for others. So for me, tarot isn't really just about like surrendering my power or trying to predict every detail of the future, right? Like for me, it's a tool for reflection. So it's a way for me to slow down, become present, and really just ask some deeper questions, about what's happening within me. And as a health scientist, I'm trained to observe patterns. And as an herbalist, I've kind of learned that nature communicates through cycles and seasons. So tarot for me, it's just another practice that encourages observation, not just of the cards, but of my own thoughts, my emotions, my habits, and even my responses, actually. I think life moves in cycles. Everything in nature moves in cycles. Once again, the moon waxes and wanes, the seasons change. Our bodies follow rhythms through sleep, hormones, and energy levels. I know we talked about all of that. Even our lives are have seasons, so times of growth, even times of rest, letting go. We know all of those, but I found that tarot really helps me become more conscious of the season I'm in. Instead of resisting change, it encourages me to really ask, like, what is this season trying to teach me ultimately? So
Yeah.
of course, I definitely use tarot during different cycles, moon cycles as well. They all mean and do different things, but I really believe that tarot is really beneficial, even in your own practice. Or of course, if you go to a tarot reader, I've had great experiences with that as well. A lot of times, people who want to do it on their own, I really appreciate the different tarot decks that actually are out there that come with a little book. They kind of have some explanations on each card. I think those are very helpful. And a lot of times they're really dead on. I personally like to read the positive and the negative, just because for me, I experience both. And so I like to be a little bit more managing of those things. So I believe it's a really great tool as far as tarot is concerned.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Ashley. And so we're getting, I can't believe, I can't believe how quickly this conversation has gone. So we've only got a few minutes left before we're supposed to say goodbye. So I wanted to go back around and so if there's one thing in this conversation that you've taken that you really would like somebody to take with them, what would that be? And so I'm going to put you on the spot, Lisa, just because we didn't get to you around the tarot question. So I'm going to start with you to have you share, like, what is it in this conversation that you've taken that you would like to kind of bring forward?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would like people to hear, the message I would like to send out there is to honor your intuition. And like what you said, when you've had intuitive hits in your life and you don't really understand why, it doesn't make sense in your logic brain. You should be listening to your body brain, not your logic brain. But when you have those intuitive hits and you reflect back on them, and then you're like, oh, that's why. And I know in my own life, the the times that I've ignored those hits, things didn't turn out great. So it's really important to honor your intuition and honor your body when it tells you something, because there's so much more wisdom there than there is here. This is just observation and processing. This is where the real work is.
Hmm. Beautiful. Thanks so much. Laura, what about you?
I'm not gonna lie, I really loved all of the nature and like the tree analogies because I also am a fan of nature, but I think it is like even in there's the different cycles, and as there's a high, there's often a low. But I think to the point that Lisa and I believe Denise and Ashley have made, and I think that like when when we can allow the death to happen and when we can allow that to be processed and moved through, new life is going to come up. Like the new life will be there again. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, especially because I think, we're facing a lot of heightened information and energy right now. And I think it's important that like we also maintain that idea of hope and the idea of cycles that like we're or actually you use the Xfinity. I liked the Xfinity thing too. That was also like a really great reference. But I think just remembering that like even with the death, there is also life already in process.
Beautiful. Denise, what about you?
For me, what everyone has said is just it's such a rhythm. It's just moved in such a rhythm. It's been beautiful. But I feel that find yourself. Find yourself, who you are, why you are, how you are, when you are. Ask yourself questions. That self-knowing, know thyself. It's such an important thing, asking yourself questions. We ask everybody else, and everybody else tells us, but am I asking myself? Am I knowing the truth of myself? Am I loving myself? It's be compassionate with yourself, honor you, because each one of us is such an intricate part of the whole picture, and we touch everything. So what I think, what I say, what I do touches everything around me. So it's about, yeah, it's knowing thyself and feel through the discomfort, through the horror, through the escalate, the what do you call it? The beauty, the everything, because everything is here for us to see ourselves.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Denise. And Ashley, what about you?
I agree with everyone what they have said so far. I guess to not repeat anyone, but I think ultimately receiving the message that our body is your body is not asking for perfection, it's asking for a partnership. And I think that if we listen to our intuition more, be more self aware, to listen to ourselves, and just to figure it out, have compassion with ourselves, like it was just spoken. And I think that is really important. And also to remember that we are a part of nature. It's a whole, we are part of it. It's not separate from us. And so nature is one of our oldest teachers. So if we're willing to become students again, I think that we can learn a lot from just observing. And sometimes that is needed as well. And being still, it's okay to just be still in the moment. And even if it's chaos, just write it all down or pay attention to it. And I'm sure eventually it will manage out.
And so, so for me, I do want to stick with that nature theme that Ashley just connected with, or that she just stated, because it really is important for us to just be still, to be quiet, because in that stillness is where the wisdom gets to creep up and point us in the direction that we need to go. And so this is the time of the year that I love being able to have access to outside and this connection. And so the nature really is that opportunity to be able to just be in that stillness and in that quiet. And even if we are inside when it's the middle of winter and the wind is blistering outside, we don't have to be necessarily in the thick of the snowstorm. We can be in and inside and listening and just being in that quiet. And when we say stillness and quiet, I think one of the things that's really important for people to know and understand, because there may be other people like me who really struggled with that stillness and quiet because of all the chaos and all the storms that were coming through. Quiet meant that storm, that quiet before the storm kind of thing, right? So so it's like when it got all quiet, then the explosion would happen. And so then it would be that reminder of just being able to just be quiet and still, and just know it doesn't mean not movement. It doesn't mean like don't move. It doesn't mean like don't wiggle or jiggle or walk or whatever. It's just being quiet and just being able to have that opportunity to just be still, so that our mind and our bodies can tell us what it is that we need, because it is there. And when we are struggling with it, remembering that there is a whole wealth of wisdom, there's a whole wealth of ancient wisdom that is at our access and ready. We just simply need to ask for the help. And so our guides are intuitive, our intuition, our ancestors, nature, everybody or everything will come forward to give you the answers that you need if you ask for that help. Because of free will, things that can't just happen. So your angels, your ancestors, they can't just come forward and just provide you with whatever. It needs to be that permission. And so if you've worked with people who do intuitive work, or that have ancient healing practices or anything like that, is you will often hear them say, do I have your permission? And that is because even though you physically came and you've paid for services and you've done whatever, they still need to ask you, do you give me permission? Because you have that free will that allows you to be able to move forward into that next phase or next step or whatever information that you need. And so just remembering and honoring yourself in this moment. And I do want to say thank you to all of the ladies who have come forward and shared this beautiful conversation as Sophia comes back to say goodbye and close things off. I just want to say thank you for this conversation. This is the first Ancient Wisdom Rising panel that I didn't have some notes that I had set aside. It was just simply tonight I'm trusting my intuition of whatever it is that needs to come forward, and I just want to hear what it is that everyone has to say, which is why I did a note for myself in the chat, because it's like, oh, I want to pick up on all this wisdom that these ladies are saying just in their introduction. And I'm really thankful for that that piece, because I think that that really enlightened a lot of the conversations and allowed us to be able to flow in the direction that we went. So thank you so much, ladies. Sophia?
And thank you, Rolly. It is an incredible conversation. I just want to honor you for, trusting your intuition. I'm also very similar. I have to have all my notes, but when we can let that go and just trust and listen, be in the moment and listen to what everyone else is sharing, magic happens. And this was a very magical conversation. A lot of wisdom shared. So I just want to thank you, Rolly, and of course, the beautiful Denise and Laura and Lisa and Ashley Nicole for joining us once again on a great Ancient Wisdom Rising, the Moon Medicine for Modern Hearts Wisdom Circle. Do come back next month when our beautiful Gigato Migwanpai is with us again. And also check out all the links for everyone who spent an hour of their time, given up an hour of their time sharing their wisdom. Do click on the links below. And while you're there, also check out Sacred You. Come and join us again for lots of other wisdom circles. Thank you, Olin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sophia.